life safe to say. God give it, God take it away. It's the worldwide American way. I'm living.
What's going on, team? Proof here, and today I'm coming at you with something a little bit special. If you're not aware, about 2-3 weeks ago, the Asian Championships took place, and there was a Ryzen player who got 4th place in the event, and the game that he had against 7 Seas Rush was uploaded to kind of give some proof to him placing 4th place. And he actually reached out to me on my website, and we kind of chit-chatted back and forth, and he gave me permission to share that with you. So as of the posting of this video, I guess you call it an interview. The interview I had with him is going to be up on the website, which I'll leave a link to down below. And I'm also going to leave a link to the game that was posted of his match against the 7 Seas Rush player. But I'm actually going to do today a deck spotlight, which is because he gave me the picture of his deck. There was a video circulating on Twitter, but it wasn't the clearest image. But since he actually reached out to me, I'm actually going to show the picture he sent to me, and I'm going to go through the deck list. And I'm going to leave a typed out list down below for that as well, in case you just want to see the deck. I'm going to talk about it, talk about his card choices, because I should talk to him about a couple of his card choices, and just kind of go over the deck and give another example of the Ryzen deck to people that's outside of my take on the deck, and hope you enjoy. So with that, I'm going to get into the deck itself. So starting with the grade zeros, we got starter, Mecha Trainer, of course, the boy, the king. Mecha is king. Unless you're playing a non-Ryzen deck, then you can switch it up for however you feel. He's playing 4 draws, 6 crit, 2 stand, 4 heal. As you guys have seen, I've shifted from 4 draw and 6 crit to 2 draw and 8 crit. But this is the standard lineup for anybody that's going to be wanting to use a Ryzen deck. And then that, in my personal opinion, this will be the baseline trigger setup for a Ryzen deck. And then from there, you can tweak it up and change it up however you see fit. Toby, which is his name, which I forgot to mention in the little brief intro, he actually opted to go for the 4 draw, which I understand because it helps just pull pieces together. You take a little bit away from the crit side and just put it into the longevity of pulling pieces together side, which I definitely understand and definitely get. As for the grade 1s, he has 4 Milly, 4 Acrobat, 3 Eliza, and 3 Frog Raider. I actually like it. 14 grade 1s, which is standard. Considering he's playing 7 grade 3s, I get playing 4 Acrobat. In my personal preference, I would take out one of the Acrobats and add in either an Eliza or a Frog, depending on which one you put more importance on. But I totally understand playing the 4th Acrobat just to help stride consistency, because that's definitely what the deck is based on, is striding. I wouldn't change anything like in the context of the cards themselves, but you can play with the numbers if whatever you see fit. -1 Acrobat, +1 Frog, -1 Acrobat, +1 Eliza, whichever one you see fit. But this is definitely a good trigger, or not trigger, this is definitely a good grade 1 lineup to base your deck off of as well. As for the grade 2s, you got 3 Tiger, 3 Treasure Black Panther, which is the 10K vanilla, 3 Misery, and 3 Heave Wheeze. I think this here is the most interesting part of the deck in terms of detouring or changing from a standard setup, I guess you could say, because he's going 3s across the board. I personally like 4 Panther. I personally like 4 Tiger because I think he's the best grade 2 the deck has at its disposal. So I want to make sure I maximize the chance of putting it into my hand. But you can definitely use 3 and definitely utilize 3 to the same capacity as you would 4. It's just personal preference with me because Tiger is my favorite grade 2 going right now. Interestingly enough, he also chose to use the 10K vanilla. In my personal testing, I've started to use it more because I see the merits that it offers. It helps spikes with one of their weaknesses for most spike decks is the early game. in terms of not bleeding away resources because your opponent puts a lot of pressure on you. Because if your opponent's familiar with the matchup, they know that if they're aggressive with you early, you have to use more pieces to protect yourself as opposed to using those pieces to try to take out your opponent. But Panther or Monty, if you're playing a Dudley deck, helps stop that bleeding, so to speak, because if you're sitting on a 10K, they can no longer use a 9K grade 2 to like poke at your Vanguard to help make you use a 5K or take a damage. They have to put something behind it, which takes cards out of their own hand, which helps feed your end game. It also helps protect yourself against all the 9K plus Forerunner starters, or 9K grade 2s plus Forerunner boosted columns, because you can just throw down one of your 10Ks to protect yourself. So you have both Devil Watch in your hand, but you know you won't need both of them to get through the game. You can use one to protect yourself there, and it just helps give Spikes a little bit of a damage buffer, because Spikes with a damage lead is really dangerous because of how potent they are at finishing the game, and it makes your opponent uncomfortable to where they feel like they need to expend more resources to help catch up, which then helps you with the end game itself. I say start incorporating at least 3 10Ks into your own personal decks. I've started to do it myself, as you saw in the Neo Nectar games I had against Korikai. I played 4 there, but I'm going to shift it down to 3, because while it's good in the early game, you don't want to see it later, because it hinders your Miracle Ace turn if you're going for that. But just the benefit of it helps outweigh the weaknesses that it could pose later in the game. So I say start incorporating it. That's my personal take on it. Just because the way the game is shifting, you're going to need that 10K body by and large, in my opinion. So yeah, let's move on to Misery, 3 Misery. So when it comes to Misery and Frog, my personal philosophy, I said personal a lot, that's okay. My philosophy on is that between Misery and Frog, you want to have a total of 6 of them, just to help consistently have at least one of them in your hand when you need it. So in my deck, I've shifted down to 2 Misery in testing, but have 4 Frog Raiders, so you get the 6 there. Toby went for 3 and 3, which is really good, and it sticks to that general philosophy as well. You can go 4 Misery, 2 Frog Raider. I wouldn't advise it, but it's possible. Just depending on how much need you feel, or how much emphasis you want to put on having Misery. But the general philosophy is to have 6 total in the context of your deck. And Toby opted to go for Heave Wheeze over the traditional Cobalt, or a mixture of Cobalt and Lethal Forward. And it's something that I'm thinking about doing as well, because the speed of the game has shifted so much to trying to get value out of Cobalt may not be the best method to achieve victory in your game. Even though your opponent might be ahead on damage on you and you're trying to recoup and put pressure on them, just accumulating damage with the force columns that Heave Wheeze can provide might be better in the long term. And it kind of acts as a pseudo Tiger 5 through 7 or 4 to 6, depending on how many Tigers you have. Because if you have a Heave Wheeze in your hand but not a Tiger, and you want to set up the triple combo, you can put Heave Wheeze in front of Frog Raider and then call out Tiger in front of Eliza. And now that Heave Wheeze, when you put it in charge, it's only attacking for 26 or 31 versus Cobalt, which is 16 to 21, which your opponent might end up taking, versus, and then now they're staring down Tiger as well. It just puts more pressure on your opponent's resources, because it hits over most / all of the plus 5K G guards. Even though they're starting to phase out because everybody's getting G guards that are so much bigger now, it's still nice to potentially force out 2 cards from your opponent, even if they use a G guard, which Heave Wheeze does and Cobalt does not. And with the G guards people are starting to get, it might be better to have a Heave Wheeze / Dove, just because it forces those numbers on your opponent. And it's something to think about for me in the future, whether I want to incorporate Dove into the deck as well again, because I've also started going back to 3 Hive Maker and testing as well. but just having the power to push through is going to become so paramount in the future that I'm trying to think about how I want to future-proof the deck to make sure it's ready when that time comes. And as for the grade 3s, he got standard 4 Nova, 4 Rise Nova, 4 the boy, gotta have him, you already know, and 3 Hive Maker, just because having Hive Maker on your Miracle Aces turn is great for converting Soul into Counterblast. It's also good for a 4 damage Picaro combo, and it's just really good overall. And as I just mentioned, I might be going back to 2 and 2. Just figure out how to make space for that in the context of your grade 1 and 2 lineup as well. As for the strides, he has 4 Supernova for a big boy. He went for 4 Miracle Ace. I've shifted down to 2 and put more emphasis elsewhere because he's a great finisher, but as I finally wrap my head around it, needing 4 of him may not be. Ooh, had to cut the light on, get a little dark. Having 4 of him may not be necessary going forward, but I can understand still playing 4 as well. As for the other strides, he has 1 Picaro. I would start using 2. I've been using 2, but I would keep using 2 just because as decks starting to slow down or if games go long, having that second Picaro is really good. 1 Dhampir, just a nice staple 1-up to have. 1 Sebreeze in case your opponent tries to grade stall you. And his interesting tech choice is Tiger Centurion. And I asked him about it, and he mentioned that there were times where he felt it was necessary to have it on the field. I'm guessing in times when he had 2 or more charge units on the field from pushing damage in early. But he also said he might phase it out for Hell Hard 8 when he comes along, which I would definitely advise him to do as well. And the 2 glared images you can't really tell what they are too well is a Max and an Agleam. Max is really good with Panther because he can stick on the board and then you can use him to buff up Max before intercepting with him so he doesn't go back into your deck. And Agleam is really good just for that small filter you might need, whether it's pulling a stride fodder into your hand, pulling another charge unit by pitching a non-charge unit. Just general things like that. Those are the main 2 purposes of Agleam that I can think of. But just having it in your G zone is really good. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with Agleam / Dismal when Linus comes out, but that'll be another video for another day. So that's Toby's deck. It's a really good deck. I would advise people to use it if you're looking for kind of like an intro into Ryzen to help wrap your head around some of the new stuff that's been talked about recently by me with the 10K vanillas and whatnot. And solid deck, and I really enjoy it. I really like it. And congrats to Toby for his 4th place showing, representing for Spikes and the clan itself. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Look out for the links down below to the little impromptu interview I had with him and to his game against the 7 Seas Rush player that was featured. And that'll do it for me. And look out for more. Hope you enjoy. And until next time, peace. Be easy.